Hello and welcome to the video. My name is Necropally. I'm a World of Warcraft streamer over on Twitch every Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday at 7 p.m. till about 10ish. Today's video we're going to talk about a beginner's guide to Mythic Plus. I did a video recently about why you should return to World of Warcraft, so I felt like it might be time to give some basic beginner tips for Mythic Plus and the Mythic system overall. Okay, so your first question, just like this guy's, is what is Mythic Plus? Well, Mythic Plus is basically the same as any of the other dungeons, even any Mythic Zero. It's just a little bit harder difficulty, but Mythic Plus scales as the Mythic Key scales. The only difference between that and a Heroic or a Mythic dungeon, a Mythic Zero that is that now you have a required amount of enemies to kill, and you have a timer to beat it by. So if you want to increase the level of your key and increase the difficulty of your Mythic Plus, which in turn increases your rating, then you want to time it. And sometimes you can increase the key rapidly if you time it more quickly. A few basic things before you try to get into Mythic Plus. You want to be a decent eye level. 630-ish is where I would recommend. Maybe if you really know your class, 628-ish, right about. Which between doing looking for raid and delves shouldn't be all that hard to obtain. Okay, so you think you're ready, you got the eye level, you think that you've done the dungeons enough on normal, and maybe even tried a few of them on Mythic Zero, you think you're ready to do a Mythic Plus dungeon, but you don't have a key. Where do you go? Well, you can go this place, which is where the portal room is that takes you to this season's Mythic dungeons. There is a person that stands to the right of the portal that will give you a key. You can complete a Mythic dungeon. I believe even a Mythic Zero, if you completed one, will give you a key. And that is what you will use in order to start your Mythic Plus journey. Now, talking about Mythic Plus and Mythic Plus Keystone difficulties. It does scale based on the Keystone. So as you can see, starting at a 2, you have a 7% increase on their health and damage for all enemies. And depending on the key level, you do have some extra things, which I'll get into here in a minute. But it scales all the way up to a 15. It does scale higher, but I didn't put it on the chart. So if you are looking forward to doing higher keys, well, the scaling at that point is probably not going to matter because you're going to have to deal with a whole lot more than just the scaling. All right, so I did tell you that you were going to start getting extra things the higher key levels you went up. They're called affixes. Starting at a level 4 key, you will get Xal'atath's bargains, which I'll go over in a second. At a level 7 key, you will either get tyrannical or fortified, depending on what week it is. Tyrannical is where the bosses are stronger. Their health is about 30% higher and they do about 15% more damage. Fortified is where the same thing happens, but it's for all the mobs. So depending on which week it is, we'll change your strategies and stuff like that when it comes to pulls and how you handle bosses when you use lust. And we'll talk about that when we talk about group comp. If you keep on pushing even higher on level 10, you gain both tyrannical and fortified. So whichever one you didn't get at 7, you get now at 10. So pretty much the whole entire dungeon has an increase of 30% health and 15% damage. At level 12 keys and higher, you will lose the 4 affixes on Xal'atath's bargain, or whichever one that you have for that week. And you will gain Xal'atath's guile. And what this means is that you are going to have an extra penalty for every time anybody dies. So there's already a penalty for deaths in Mythic Plus. So dying is a big no-no. But on a 12 and higher, that penalty is substantially higher. It goes up to 15 seconds per death. And unfortunately, in a 12, 15 seconds can make or break a key. Easily. Alright, so I have the 4 Xal'atath bargains up over here, over my left shoulder. But I know you can't see that. So here, let me help you out with that. So, with the Xal'atath bargains, you have the 4 different ones that you can have. The first one is the Ascendant, which spawns 10 orbs that need to be interrupted. So on the weeks that you have the Ascendant as your affix, your group comp is going to want to include CCs. Or you're going to make sure that you spec into CCs that allow you to do multiple enemies at once, like the Monk's Leg Sweep, Death Knight with Blinding Sleet, the Paladin Blinding Light, those type of things, Capacitor Totem under Shaman. That will help you get rid of these orbs, because if you don't get rid of the orbs and their cast goes off, the mobs will gain increased movement speed and haste. If you do interrupt them, you gain that. So there is a benefit to not trying to make it more difficult on yourself. The next one is Voidbound. This will summons an emissary that you have to defeat before the cast goes off of Dark Prayer. And if that goes off, all enemies will take reduced damage of about 10%. The next one is Pulsar. While in combat, Xal'atath manifests Pulsar that tethers and orbits around players with it for 15 seconds. The goal here is to absorb the Pulsar before the 15 seconds are up. Players that absorb the crystal can gain increased mastery and leech for 30 seconds. And the last one is Devour. Periodically, Xal'atath will cast a Devouring Rift that puts a shield debuff on all 5 players and can be removed by either healing done or dispelling using a dispel. If it is not done, the mobs will gain the shield and be healed by 10%. Not fun. Otherwise, the players are granted a 2% increase on health and a 4% increase on crit strike. Alright, so now you have your mythic key. You think you're prepared to go into one, so you set your mind on going into a mythic key. You now have an understanding of the increased scaling in mythic keys, so depending on where you're at, you can pick the key that's associated best with where you're at currently. You know the affixes, you got a good understanding of what to expect. Well, what's next? Well, now you got to prepare for the key itself. Group composition. I know it might be a shocker, but every group needs a tank, a healer, and 3 DPS. In lower keys, 2s, and all the way through 7s, even 10s, there is a preferred group comp that most people run called the meta. Personally, if you don't play a meta class, trust me, I don't play a meta class. You're not going to always get into the people that are looking for the meta type groups. But in the lower keys, the only thing that you really need to make sure you have is a lust. Lust is a super important point in every group, and just because you don't have a character that has the ability to lust, that's fine. You could always go out and buy drums. It's not the exact same thing, but it's better than nothing. The other thing that you need to do to prepare is make sure that you have all of your items enchanted. Make sure that you have the consumables that you need, the food, the flasks. Personally, right now I'm using either a haste flask or a versatility flask, depending on where I'm suffering in my stats based on the gear that I have. You want to have potions, potions that increase your overall strength for X number of minutes, or health potions because, sometimes healers are not going to be able to make it to you because you're on the other side of the room and they're over here, or they're dead and you need to survive. Health potions. If you're a mana user, mana potions. All of those are super duper important. Next, but not least, is communication. If you can get with a group of people and be in Discord and have voice talk, that is just peak. That's what everybody wants. But you can also be in a group that doesn't do that, as long as they're communicating by following markers, pings, that kind of stuff. It's going to be super important. So pay attention to pings, pay attention to markers. If you have any questions before the dungeon starts, ask. Put it in chat. Most of the time people are going to answer because guess what? They want to time the key too. So, and if they don't answer and the key gets bricked because they didn't communicate, I mean, that's kind of their fault, isn't it? I mean, a little bit. All right. So one of the keys to success in Mythic dungeons is knowing what dungeons are on the Mythic Plus season, knowing how to do those dungeons, either the paths if you're the tank, the pulls if you're DPS or healers. Tanks will need to know the pulls too because it's part of the pathing. But knowing it as a DPS, yes, you will hear a bunch of people say, no, I'm just DPS, I'm mindless, I go in there and hit stuff. No, you need to know the pulls in a dungeon. You need to know what mobs to watch out for, or what mobs are super important that you kick. There are plenty of add-ons out there that'll help you with that, but nothing benefits you more than just pure experience. Get in there, run the dungeons, start on lower keys, and you may fail, but learn them. Understand, okay, if this mob gets pulled, this one needs to be priority, and we have to get this one down ASAP. Oh, if that one starts casting an ability, it has to absolutely be kicked each and every single time, or we're dead. All right, so we talked about Mythic Keystones. We talked about the biggest difference being the timers. As you can see, each dungeon has its own base timer. This is the amount of time that you have to complete that dungeon. Now, if you want to +2 the key, which means you want to take a 2 key to a 4 key, then you got to complete it in the timer for a 2. So if you take Cinderbrew, for example, it's got a 33 minute timer for the entirety of the dungeon. But if you want to get it as a +2, then you got to beat it in under 26 minutes and 24 seconds. And if you want to +3 it, then you got to get it under 19 minutes and 48 seconds. Is it possible? Absolutely. Maybe not with Cinderbrew because that dungeon sucks. Just my personal issues with it, But whatever. Now, the thing that most people are super interested in, is the whole reason that we do Mythic Plus dungeons, at least in the beginning, is for the rewards. So each dungeon, you will not loot anything until you get to the very, very last boss. After you've done the last boss and you've gotten all of the requirements, like the enemies percentage, then a chest will appear and the dungeon is complete. Now, that end of dungeon loot is going to be important because it's going to be what helps you progress into the higher keys, because you're going to have to increase your item level, because the more difficult it gets, the more health you need, the more stats you need, those type of things. The biggest importance, though, is the crest that you get from doing it, and the vault slot. Now, if you're like me, vault slots don't really matter because you never get anything from the vault. Like, ever. I mean, like, never ever. But if you're way more lucky than me, or even just slightly more lucky than me, you will get stuff from the vault that'll increase your character's item level. Now, the vault only happens once per week, and you do have 3 mythic slots that you can open up. So the more mythic dungeons you have, the more choices you will have. The other things you want to watch out for are those quests that give you, like, raid loot. So do 5 mythic dungeons and get a piece of 636 and higher gear. Now I've gotten lucky with a few of those, and I've gotten some decent tracked items, so hero track. But some of your best in slot items are going to be crafted, and these crests are really going to help with that, as well as the crest will help with getting the gear that you currently are wearing upgraded, because you want to get your item level in those items as high as you possibly can if you want to continue progressing in Mythic Plus. Alright, so that's the beginner's guide to Mythic Plus, plus a little bit of where to go next. If you have any comments, make sure you leave them in the comments section. Like the video and subscribe. If you want help or you want live feedback, join me on one of my streams. I run keys all the time. I run keys with viewers. I run keys with friends. I run keys with viewers that become friends. So whichever category you want to fall into, I'm more than happy to help. I can't guarantee that we'll time keys on higher keys. So if you're looking for guarantees there, I'll do the best I can. But hope to catch you in the next video.